Okay, Azran Osman-Rani, CEO of AirAsia X, welcome to CAPA.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
First of all, a few questions about your network plans now. We've just seen the announcement today of a new Sydney Kuala Lumpur service after 3 or 4 years. Must be very glad to be doing it.
Very thrilled to be here in Sydney.
But of course, it is made a little more sombre by the withdrawal from London and Paris, which changes your whole route planning exercise considerably. Would you like to just sort of elaborate on where you're going with your route planning now?
Yeah, I think one of the clear things we've learned coming out of this 4 years of developing the low-cost long-haul model, a lot of trial and error, is the imperative to have sufficient scale in the markets that we go in. Right? You can't go into markets with 3 times a week, 4 times a week. It's subscale when you've got a lot of fixed costs to invest in building a brand, setting up a distribution system, a whole airport and ground operations. So what it means for us now is picking a few countries where we can really go in, serve multiple cities within those markets, multiple frequencies, trying to get to a double daily service, which by the way is critical when you think about how important the feeder network is, right? So if you've got one flight a day, inevitably it means an overnight stay for one of the sectors. So getting to a double daily service is the ultimate goal. And that basically means when you look at our future plane orders, we've got focus, right? So we've said, look, given the situation in Europe, which is plagued by a very weak economy that has affected consumer demand, a very high taxation regime, and in a high oil price environment, that's not a market that we want to attack right now, right? Same situation in India, although a lot of structural issues on expensive infrastructure and so forth. And so for us, it's focusing on Australia. That is a key market for us. Greater China, another key market, and Japan and Korea. Japan, of course, interestingly, with AirAsia Japan developing, means that also gives us the brand and network leverage from that market.
And you said you won't be going into any new countries now. Will you, for example, be using the A330s to originate, say, maybe out of Japan or one of the other countries?
That is an option for Japan, I think, but we'll let the A320 short-haul model get itself established first, develop, and then we can look at it. It's certainly an option. We can also potentially have other bases like Bali, for example, but within these countries.
So you largely, I guess, driven by high fuel prices, you're grounding the A340s?
From our regular schedule operations, we are of course exploring various charter services that can provide some level of utilization for those planes. But in terms of regular services, yes.
Right. And you're still continuing to operate all the existing A330s, and you're taking all the already ordered A330s and A350s, I understand.
Correct. Yes.
So it's basically business as usual, except that Europe is now out of the planning indefinitely.
Yeah, well, never say never, but unless the economy picks up, they get more sensible with the taxation regime.
And Jeddah is another route that's been mentioned. Is that
it has.
In the future?
It may not be. I think one of the challenges is the fact that it is a different country, and it's also one where distribution, we've learned, we've been to Abu Dhabi, as you know, very briefly, in the Middle East, is distribution. Our brand is not strong. Unless there's a model where, effectively someone wants that capacity, is able to underwrite that capacity, and therefore takes a lot of the revenue risk from us. Otherwise, we'd rather stick to, the markets where we've got a strong brand.
So you're open to the idea of partners?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, no different than what we do with AirAsia in Japan.
And then the inevitable final question here, the good old hoary one about does the long-haul low-cost model work, particularly when you've got fuel at $120?
I think, well, bottom line, what we've seen certainly with 2010 and 2011 is the markets where we have scale, we've been able to deliver profitability, right? And in 2011, for example, Australia and China were at profit margins that were even higher than some of the top-end full-service carriers in Asia, right? And so it can work in that respect. We know it can be profitable. We know there is a structural unit cost advantage. We know we can deliver a very high on-time performance rate, 88% in 2011, higher than some of the full-service carriers, despite the challenge of having a higher aircraft utilization pattern. And lastly, people who've tried the service, right? When you go to Skytrax and you look at the ratings, right? So this is indeed a physical product that people are comfortable with.
Azran Osman-Rani, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.